Hello, hello. Welcome to Healthy Perspectives, a podcast that takes on current cultural and social issues through a clinical lens. Hello. All right. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, we appreciate your time. So we are going to get right after it. Today, we have questions for Jeremiah, part number 7. We've been doing this for a little while now, and I want to keep it rolling because every once in a while I get some great questions, and then sometimes there's a lull. So please send me your questions. I like to answer your questions when they're good. And if they're not so good, I'll still probably respond to you, unless I just get so overwhelmed that I just don't have time. But even if I do, I'm probably going to be something like, thanks, and it'll just be good enough. All right. The comment or the question today actually starts as a comment. It says, the recording quality on your You're the Problem segment, which was the 22nd one. So it was not too long ago. Anyway, it wasn't good. Hey, I want to pause right there. You're right. And I apologize. So I have this super good mic here. And on occasion, I forget to check and it switches my mic, because normally it stays on my mic if it's plugged in. But if I plug things in the wrong order, sometimes it swaps out the mic to the computer. So the whole time, I'm sitting here on my side recording with my super good mic, only to find out that it was actually my computer that was taking it through the not so great mic. And so I ended up with poor quality. Then it goes on to say, I wish it was better because the content was great. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm not doing this to get kudos, although I got to tell you, being human, being normal, it does feel good when people do like the content and they think that it's beneficial. And so I appreciate that. They go on to say, you said, quote, you can only control you. I remember that part of the segment, and I was talking about, the idea that we sometimes think we can control more than we can actually control. And he or she, they said, but I think we can control people in certain circumstances. Can you explain your thinking? All right. Well, first of all, excellent question. I love the way that this particular question is worded, because you disagree with me, number one, which means you're thinking already. Big time win, as far as I'm concerned. I love having an audience that is intelligent, that thinks things through, that is questioning themselves and questioning me. I really appreciate that. So I'm going to go into this. I'm going to give you a pretty brief, but hopefully a poignant discussion here on control. I'm going to highlight control as its own entity. I want to start with, what is control? I've addressed this in previous podcasts. It's the idea that I can reasonably predict the very next move and change it. Okay, that's good, right? I can reasonably predict the next set of circumstances, and then I can do something that changes those circumstances. Now, I want to give you a different word: influence. In life, there are many variables, many of which are predictable at any given time. Because we are creatures of habit, I can reasonably predict and then potentially even shift what another person is going to do. I can do that as a counselor. I do it all the time. I can reasonably predict that, hey, this has been your pattern. You get emotional, you blow up, and then you have to clean up the mess that you just created. Okay, that pattern comes along. Emotion, blow up, clean up. Emotion, blow up, clean up. Emotion, blow up, clean up. Emotion, and I can go, oh, Well, let's adjust something in there. And so I make a recommendation. The reason I said let's take a look at influence is because my recommendation can change the pattern. Does that mean I have control? Some would argue, yeah, but I would argue, no, I don't. What I have is influence. If you don't believe me, or if you are thinking that my recommendation is stupid, then you're not going to do it. And if you don't do it, then how much control did I actually have? We live a myth much of the time. The myth is we think that influence is control, and it's not. Right now, we've got all these things going on politically. I know y'all have been keeping up with it. There's all this stuff about, 2024 is around the corner. We've got right now front runners with Joe Biden and Donald Trump. There is this facade that they have control of their political parties, but it's a facade. They have influence. That's what they have. They don't have control. If enough people were to say, I don't know, drop out of the Republican Party or the Democrat Party and say, you know what? Screw it. I'm going independent. Or I'm going with one of these other, the Green Party or Constitutional Party or whatever else there is out there at this point. They just say, enough. If enough people did that, would the party still have their conventions? Sure. Would they still put people up there on the stage? Sure. But to what end? That control that they think they have is a myth. It is this facade. It is not real. They have influence in their party. But you and I can shift that. That means they have influence, not control. But they have control of the House or the Senate or the Congress or whatever. Do they? Last I checked, those people are individuals representing who? You and me. So when I say influence, I mean something totally different. Control is this assumption that I can do something to change the outcome by making you do something you may or may not actually want to do. That only works if I have influence. Influence is way more significant than control. Can I influence things? So I hope that set the stage, because what I'm going to go into next is this control piece and how oftentimes it's one tiny thing that shifts the control you thought you had. I'll give you an example. Style. Now, you're looking at me. If you're watching on YouTube or Rumble, you're like, you're going to talk about style? You, that guy? Schrute Farms, baby. Okay, no, I'm just messing around. But yes, I am going to talk about style, because style is one of those things. Vocabulary is another. But let's stick with style for a second. One person decides that they're going to wear a particular style. And before long, that style starts to permeate out. It's contagious. It's contagious not because necessarily the first person. It's contagious because the second, the third, and the fourth. Because what happens is it's called momentum. Oh, my friend saw so-and-so wearing it and they liked it. And then they wore it. And then I looked at my friend and I was like, I kind of like that too. And so now I'm wearing it. And then My other friends are looking at me going, well, that's pretty cool. And so then they start wearing it. And next thing you know, what happens is one person started the influence and it became contagious. It became contagious because people are like, oh, I like that. Songs can do that. There's a lot of things that do that exact thing, but it all starts with one person who controls one person themselves. They just decide, you know what? I don't care that nobody's doing this. I like it. I'm going to do it. And so then they do it. And somebody else says, hey, they did it. And I like that they did it. And I like it still. So I'm going to do it. And so it grows. So control always stems from ourselves. It doesn't stem from my ability to influence somebody else. Nope. It always starts with myself. Let's give you a therapeutic content here. Communication. Communication, basics of communication. You've heard me talk about this before. Basics of communication. There has to be at least two people, or it's not actually communication. It's just noise, right? You send, you know, if there's nobody around and you say, I am the best in the world, nobody knows it. So it doesn't matter. It's not real. And communication, you don't have communication there. What you have is an announcement to nothing. So you have a sender and a receiver. I can control what I send and how I send it. You can control what you send and how you send it. I can control what I hear and observe, and you can control what you hear and observe. So with the basics of communication, and this is how a lot of people think they get control, is they communicate effectively across a domain of some sorts, much like I'm doing with this podcast. I send a message out. If you're receptive, and only if you're receptive, you can take that content and it could shift inside of you some ways in which you think, only because you allow it. I can only gain control if you give your control to me. In other words, if I can influence you. I hope that's all making sense now. So now I influenced you because you gave me the gift of your ears or eyes, so that you can be influenced by me and my podcast or our interaction. And then you turn around and you behave, you act, your mannerisms maybe shift, or you do things differently because you have, let's say in this particular example, some respect for me and how I do things. And you're like, I'm going to emulate that, which is awesome. I love it. I mean, I'm not a savior, which I was talking about in that particular podcast. But you, by emulating, by mimicking me, I have gained influence in your world, not control, because you have to give up control for me to have control. I can't just puppeteer you. You could change your mind and be like, Jeremiah, you're an idiot. I no longer am going to listen to you. That could happen at any moment. But if I maintain that influence over time, it looks like I get more control. But that's not what I'm getting. I'm getting more influence. And it's because you are giving it away to me. This also comes up in relationships. This will be my last example for today. This comes up in relationships. You got one person who routinely gives up their power and is influenced by the other. It might be something like, I want to go out with my friends more, but they don't like it, so I don't do it. Okay. Who's gaining control? Nobody. There's one that is giving up control. That's what's happening. I'm giving up my control to my partner. Now, in many situations, I'm not going to lie, that can be both healthy or extremely unhealthy. That's how abuse happens, but it's also how sacrifice happens. So I'm not going to get into the details of that, but I do want to put that little bug in your ear. If you are in a position where you are sacrificing yourself, giving up your decision-making power to your partner, and it's happening a lot, there's a chance that you might be in a situation where there's some control issues. That's what they call them. But really what it is you giving up your control. And that could become, if it's not already, an abusive situation. I hope this clarifies the control piece. I know I threw in that influence stuff because it's a really nuanced difference, and I really hope that you can understand the difference between control, which is ourselves, and influence, which is us being able to help somebody else down their path through the form of they want that help from you. They are deferring that trust and that control in some situations to you. Big difference. All right. I hope that was clarifying. Thank you so much for the question. Please send me more. These are, some of these are getting really good. And I just, I would love to answer your question. So send it to me. You can do that. All the links are in the podcast description. Feel free to email or put a note in whatever platform you're using. I'll try to find it. I know that some of them automatically send it to me. So thank you so much for joining us. Have a good one. Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening. We appreciate our audience a lot, so we give you some simple ways to track us down. Please like, subscribe, and follow all the podcasts on different platforms, but you can also email us at healthyperspectives@protonmail.com, or you can check out our website at healthy-perspectives.com/podcast. It's a backward slash. So if you want to go to our landing page, if you go to healthy-perspectives.com, you'll still find us. You just got to click on the podcast button. Thank you so much.